Do the LA Lakers need to move on from Russell Westbrook? It's been pretty clear that the LA Lakers are struggling this season pretty significantly, and one of the star players they brought in during free agency in Russell Westbrook has also been struggling, and a lot of people are saying that the reason the LA Lakers are struggling so much is due to Russell Westbrook. And now Lakers head coach Frank Vogel announced that the Lakers will be benching Russell Westbrook, and due to this, there's a ton of trade rumors revolving around Russell Westbrook's name. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, please consider hitting that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it.
Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic.
After winning the NBA championship back in the 2020 NBA bubble, the more recent history for the Lakers has been very disappointing. Last season, the Lakers certainly had a disappointing season, only making it to the 7th seed and losing to the Phoenix Suns in the first round. But a lot of people thought the reason why the Lakers were struggling so much last year was due to the fact that both their star players in AD and LeBron got injured so much, which was certainly the case last year. But going into this year, what the Lakers tried to do to counteract those injuries to their main two guys was bring in some other players during free agency to really help that out. And during free agency, they brought in a ton of different players, but the main guy they brought in was star point guard Russell Westbrook. But although it's pretty obvious that Russell Westbrook's a brand name and certainly has the ability to be a superstar in the league, it's also been pretty clear that in his most recent stops with the Houston Rockets and the Washington Wizards, there were a bunch of different problems that arose with Russell Westbrook. But really the main consensus issue with Russell Westbrook is the fact that he cares about his numbers a lot more than he cares about winning. I'm not saying he doesn't care about winning, but he certainly cares about his individual numbers a lot more. And we've really started to see that a lot more, especially for the Houston Rockets and the Washington Wizards, and also with the OKC Thunder towards the tail end of his career with them. I'm not trying to completely bash Russell Westbrook because I really do think he's a very talented player, but I just personally really think he needs to figure this issue out before he can really move on with his career. And if he doesn't, he's basically going to be the same player that we're seeing currently. But after the sky-high expectations for the Lakers after bringing in a bunch of players during free agency, and especially Russell Westbrook, it's been pretty clear that early on into this season, the Lakers have certainly struggled pretty tremendously. And certainly Westbrook's a part of it, but in my opinion, he's not the only reason, and I think that's pretty clear. Just looking at some of the Lakers' issues on a broad scale, you can clearly tell that both offensively and defensively, the Lakers struggled pretty tremendously. Talking about their offensive issues, of course when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are both on the court and running the pick and roll or pick and pop offense, the Lakers' offense runs pretty smoothly because that offense between those two guys is basically unstoppable. But when those two guys aren't on the court or aren't running the pick and roll or pick and pop offense, the Lakers certainly do struggle. Of course, the Lakers have a very talented team overall, and there's certainly certain stretches where they're completely red hot and playing fantastic basketball, but at the same time, there's also some stretches where it basically seems like nobody on the Lakers could hit a shot whatsoever. And the biggest issue with them offensively is just they're way too inconsistent. And when you're a team that's very inconsistent offensively, you just turn into a team that has a potential to be a good team, but currently at this point, it's just not a good team at all. But now talking about some of the Lakers' defensive issues, there's way too many times where the initial defender just gets blown by way too easily, and the offensive player just drives all the way to the basket for a wide open dunk or layup. That's your first issue with the Lakers. The second issue is there's way too many miscommunications, and players just get wide open dunks, maybe cutting back door for a wide open dunk or layup, in the corner for a wide open catch and shoot three at the top of the key. There's just way too many miscommunications that are leading to wide open shots and making the opponent's lives a lot easier. And when you talk about a team that struggles offensively and struggles defensively and is overall just way too inconsistent, you get the LA Lakers, where you get a team that has a potential to be a really good team, but they're just way too inconsistent to ever live up to those expectations. But looking at the Lakers' issues on a more in-depth scale, I think the biggest issue with the Lakers is they have way too many guys on their team that just don't fit together. Not necessarily that they're not good players, but they just don't fit together stylistically. And I think the biggest issue and the biggest two players that don't work together are Russell Westbrook and LeBron James. And the biggest issue between those two guys is both of those players really need the ball in their hands to be effective. And what I mean by that is when Russell Westbrook has a ball in his hands, LeBron James certainly has the ability to be a spot-up shooter and a catch-and-shoot guy, but you're not really utilizing LeBron James the way that you really need to. But vice versa, when LeBron James has a ball in his hands and Russell Westbrook spotting up from that three-point area, he's basically useless because he's been a terrible three-point shooter throughout his NBA career for the most part, part, but especially for the LA Lakers this year. And whatever players guarding Westbrook can really back off and fall into the paint and really just serve as an extra defender to guard whatever player is driving all the way to the basket. And even if you kick it out to Westbrook for a wide open catch and shoot 3-point shot, more likely than not, he's going to miss that shot. And he really struggles with that shot, but I don't think you need me to tell you. I think everybody already knows this. And I think that's a big stylistic flaw with the Lakers, besides their collective issues as a unit. And in my opinion, I think the fact that the Lakers did bench Russell Westbrook is a very good thing for them going forward, not necessarily because Westbrook doesn't play hard or isn't necessarily a good player. I just think he doesn't fit with them, as well as some of the issues that I mentioned earlier, and overall I think it's just a good move. But I don't even know if this is even possible due to his contract, but if the Lakers could somehow trade Russell Westbrook, even if they get nothing in return, which would probably be the case, maybe a second round pick and a bunch of other players just to match the contract that the Lakers would probably waive anyway, even if the Lakers were able to do a deal like that, I would certainly do it in a heartbeat just to move on from Westbrook and really focus on your main two guys in LeBron James and Anthony Davis and go into the NBA trade deadline and try to bring in some complementary pieces to complement those main two guys very well and have a different mindset going into the NBA playoffs, hopefully for the Lakers. But as I mentioned, I don't even know if that's necessarily possible due to the contract that Westbrook has, and that's a huge issue that the Houston Rockets faced when they had him, but luckily for them they were able to trade for John Wall, who also was in a similar situation. But it's going to be very interesting to see what the Lakers do going forward. In my opinion, I think they should trade Russell Westbrook. Again, I feel like I'm kind of bashing Westbrook a lot in this video, and maybe he deserves a little bit of it, but at the same time, I really do honestly think that he's a very talented player and certainly has the ability to play very good NBA basketball and winning basketball potentially if he's in the right situation. I just personally don't think the Lakers is the right situation for him. But if the Lakers aren't able to move on from Westbrook and he is on the team for the rest of the season, maybe the Lakers could start to figure it out a little bit, but I don't really see this Lakers team doing much once they make it to the playoffs, if they even do. If they make it to the playoffs, they're probably going to be at the very best a 6th seed in the Western Conference, in my opinion. Maybe if they're lucky, get a little bit higher than that. If they're a 6th seed or worse in the Western Conference, in my opinion, I don't think they're going to win their first round playoff matchup no matter who they play, because I think the top end of the Western Conference is obviously very good and in my opinion way too good for the LA Lakers. But who knows, maybe the Lakers keep Westbrook and they completely turn around and live up to those expectations that a lot of people had for them going into this season, but in my opinion, I just don't think that's very likely. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Russell Westbrook needs to be traded from the Lakers, or do you think he's not the issue? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, please check out one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic. Hope you can't go where I'm headed.